Welcome to Coddiwompling Along The Tao with Noel Eastwood, and this is episode 5, and I'm talking about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in 22nd December last year at exact 0 degrees Aquarius. So what I've done, I wanted to expand on what I spoke to you about in my previous video blog and walk you through what else could have happened in someone else's chart and walk around the chart a little bit. So I've made up this fictitious chart, and I wanted to put the Sun at 0 degrees Aquarius where the conjunction would take place, and I just made up 21st of January 1997, and it's actually turned into quite a fascinating chart. So let's have a quick look at it. First of all, we've got Sun in Aquarius at 0 degrees, and even though it's 57 seconds, don't let that bother you. That is, that's tight enough an orb for a transit. Believe me, this transit's a big one, and yeah, that 57 seconds or minutes is not going to make any difference. We've got Sun conjunct Jupiter applying, Sun conjunct Neptune applying, Sun conjunct Uranus separating. Now these are all important factors in delineating the impact of a transit on someone. Before you look at the transits, you have to know the person's natal chart. Never do anything without a thorough understanding of the person's natal chart. Don't do your progressions, directions, solar returns, lunar returns. Don't even try it. You need to understand them fundamentally. So this is the fundamental look at this person. So let's just quickly run through what I look at. First of all, the ascendant and what's happening in the first house. Significant because that's Pisces. And what is Pisces ruled by? Neptune. What is Neptune doing? Neptune's conjunct the Sun. That's significant. We have Saturn in the first house. That's very significant. Anything in the first house is going to be immediately felt by the person. Remember, the first house is a very super personal house. It is a mini you. The seventh house opposite is everybody else. Everything else that influences you and has impact on you, like a mirror, is channeled through the seventh house for you to learn about yourself. If you lived on a desert island all by yourself and didn't have any mirrors and no one there to tell you that you smelt and that you're rude and were unclean, you would never know. You would never be able to change yourself because you don't have that outside perspective. So this is what the seventh house does. It gives you everybody else to tell you what sort of person, or validate you or invalidate you about who you are and what you think you are. So we can't change without that seventh house and the influence of others. Right, getting back to the 11th house. The 11th house represents the greater world. It's a humanitarian house. It's like climate change. The concerns that we have for other people that are unjustly harmed in some way. So it's the house of injustice or justice, house of rage and outrage, the house of supporting and wishing for the needs of others. So this person, because it's also an Aquarian house, the 11th house, it's an air house. So this person has Sun in Aquarius in the 11th. So we have three things happening there. The Sun focuses where that person is focused on incarnating for this time on planet Earth. So that's basically the 11th house, very important. And the planets that they've got to support them, and the signs there as well. So straight away we know that this person is probably quite interested in the welfare of others and the welfare of the planet. It is conjunct Uranus. Well, what does that tell us? That we've got three things happening. Sun in the 11th, Sun in Aquarius, which is the same as basically the 11th, and Uranus, which is what the 11th and Aquarius is all about. So this is the what? Aquarius. So we know that this person is very, very much outraged by any sense of injustice. They will stand up and fight when they see someone being put down or bullied. They can't stand it. We add these two planets, Neptune and Jupiter. So Jupiter is applying by 1 degree. So that means it's that close to being exact. So applying aspects are like the in-laws coming to visit. Yuck. And each day that gets closer and closer, your tension builds. Okay, so you're like, and you're running around cleaning things up and you're making things, everything perfect and special because you know how critical they can be. Okay, and it builds right up to their arrival. Then after a week, they leave. And that's the separation. Oh, what a relief. So the build-up is intense and can be, felt 10, 9, 8, 7 degrees away, and then it just gets worse and worse. Up goes our tension. But the moment they walk out the door and you wave them goodbye, the separating aspect is very rapidly drops down. Now, there's disclaimers for that as well, depending on the planet and where it's in your chart. But that's basically it. The tension builds up for a long time and then drops off very rapidly. So in the natal chart, Jupiter applying means that it's always there. It's always pushing this person to expand. How does it do it? The how is the sign. The what is Jupiter. The how is Capricorn. So this Jupiter is saying, I want to expand and move on this. Like, we're in the 11th house for crying out loud. Look at you, son. You're in Aquarius and you've got your buddy Uranus there. Let's change the world. Come on, let's do it in a big way. The how to do it is the Capricorn. And thank God this person has Capricorn on the cusp. That means that Jupiter, instead of doing it in a sociopathic, irresponsible manner, which is often what Jupiter will do, being the expansive fire planet that it is, will do it in a more structured way. So Capricorn is structure, same as Saturn. So that's actually a beneficial planet there. So Jupiter in a chart can often be just way too much, just too fiery, too irresponsible, too hyperactive. We've got two fire planets here, Sun and Jupiter. Sun as a fire planet is warm and nice. Remember, the sun shines on everybody, the good people and the bad people. So the sun is generous and kind, just like us Leos. But Jupiter just wants to rush and get things bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like some companies that we know, irrespective of how many people they hurt. So we don't want Jupiter to do that, and Jupiter in Capricorn is a lovely place. Even though Jupiter will be like, oh, look, you're dragging your feet, which is an earth quality, but Jupiter needs that. It needs structure. Now, Neptune is conjunct by 2 degrees as well, or 2.5 degrees, and 3.5. Neptune is like, Neptune blends. Neptune is at one with the universe. Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house. They're all related. They all correlate in these common themes. So Neptune is like, I've got a drop of my red dye from my wife's cooking thingo in the cupboard. I've got that little thing you squirt and a drop of red dye will come out, and you can put it with your icing and you got pink icing. And I got a bucket of water and I put 1 drop. And what happens? It disperses. It becomes one with the bucket of water. Don't really notice it. It's gone. That's not pink at all. I'm very disappointed now. This is what Neptunian people, Pisces people, 12th house people can be. When it is strong in the chart, the influence of that Piscean energy, Neptunian 12th house energy, is they will go to the club or the pub or to a gathering or to a party, a social event, and they will automatically start to break apart. They start to feel and be part of that group, but then they're influenced and swayed by the moods, and their role in life is to try and come back and center themselves, to find out who they are, to remain their solid selves. That's why we have a whole chart, to help us not split apart, to keep us together. Now that doesn't mean that makes them bipolar or schizophrenic or anything like that, because I've looked at a whole heap of charts of people with disabilities, mental illness, and Neptune actually doesn't play a big role. Neptune's role is quite different to mental illness. You need to brush that one out. Neptune is that sense of dispersion and unity. Most people are not going to have that out of control, but there will be moments where if you have a very strong Neptune or a very strong 12th house or very strong Pisces, that there are times when you've got to pull yourself back, unite all the fractured parts of yourself, and come back and find out who you are. So this person has that happening as well. They've got Uranus that wants to challenge the world and change things. We've got Jupiter that says, yeah, let's go for it. I've got plenty of energy. And then we've got Neptune that says, I just want to feel and to be united with everything. And the Sun is there going, okay, well, that's my purpose. Here I am. I'm in Aquarius. I'm in the 11th house. I've got my buddies on either side. I think I can change the world. And look at these beautiful aspects, the blue ones. So these are the trines and these are the sextiles. So we've got some nice aspects that are supporting these guys to do their job. We have a grand cross here, a grand square. Now that's a very important pattern in astrology. Now what it says to me is it's like the walls of a castle. The walls are thick and they're there to protect the soft, fragile and vulnerable people on the inside. You know, the women and the children and the sick and that. Okay, so someone with a grand cross needs these walls because they're very sensitive. Is this person very sensitive? Well, there's a few features that we can say absolutely. First of all, we've got the moon in the 4th house, which is a lunar house, and it's in Cancer. So this person's very emotional. They want unity. They want family to be with them. This person is super duper sensitive with all this activity. We've got 3 outer planets conjuncting a luminary, and in astrology that is significant. In psychological astrology, that's mind-blowing significant. Any outer planet conjuncting an inner planet shows the conflict of that person. If you understand the conflict within that person, you understand what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So they're not worried about the bald tires on the car. They're worried about whatever the nature of this is. That's where they're going to focus, wherever that conjunction is. So this person is, well, just looking at these planets and the signs and the house, this person's hyperactive. They can be inattentive. They can be overly emotional. They get too excited. They leap before they think. And they're highly sensitive. They get criticized because they're impulsive and they're hyperactive and they say the wrong thing at the wrong time. They're not horrible people. These are beautiful people. This person just wants the best for everybody, but they're going to make mistakes because they're just a little bit too impulsive. That is that Aquarian, 11th, Jupiter and Uranus. Those four influences tell me straight away this person's pretty hyper. You know, whoa, come on, let's turn you down from 15 down to 2. Wind you down. That's what we want with this person. So that's why they've got the Grand Cross, because they're super duper sensitive and emotional. And part of their life's lesson tells us straight away, what do we know about them? What do they need? They need to just slow down, self-reflection, and structure their lives. Have a daily routine where they've built into it times where they're quiet and relaxed. Now the person also has Saturn in the 1st, Mars in the 7th, so there's a bit of conflict there straight away. And Pisces, of course, that's influenced by Jupiter, Pisces ascendant. Now, I'm not going to go through a total delineation of the chart, but remember, when we're looking at transits, we first of all need to understand the natal chart. And that's what I'm trying to do there. Okay, here we go. These are the transits. And there we go. Okay, so the conjunction, the exact conjunction, let me go back in time. Whoop. Oh, here we go. Let's go back. Right. So their sun is at 0 degrees, and we've got Jupiter, Saturn, and they're now rushing forward. They are applying to an exact conjunction of the sun with the sun, and they're both moving forward. So this person already, it's November, they're going to feel it around, I'm going to give this one about 4 degrees, because remember, it's already crossed a couple of times already. Remember from the previous video blog that I did. So they're feeling it around 5 degrees. The pressure's building, it's building even more. We're at 4 degrees. Now we're 2 degrees away from the exact. And here we go. Oh, I'm going to go back to a days. Let's go back to the 22nd. So it's exact conjunct. There it is. Now, Jupiter, as you know, is the accelerator. Jupiter wants to do things. It wants to get out and change the world. And it's irresponsible. It doesn't really care if people get hurt. I just want to do things. I want to expand. And that can be very selfish. Selfish, irresponsible, self-centered, a little bit sociopathic. That's Jupiter. And we've got Saturn, which is the handbrake. Slow down. What about the consequences? Did you think of this first? Of course, Jupiter doesn't think first, it just acts first and then thinks. Very much a fire trait, whether it be Mars, Sun, or Jupiter. All of the fire signs and houses and planets, when there's a dominance there, will exhibit those leap first before they look. So Saturn is there to remind Jupiter to structure, to slow down. So now we get a push me, pull you, where Jupiter wants to expand and rush off and put their foot on the accelerator, and Saturn's pulling on the handbrake over and over, trying to slow them down. And that's what will happen. Now, if in your natal chart you have them in opposition, like Jupiter, Saturn in conjunction, opposition, or in square, not so much in trine, but those other three, conjunction, opposite, or square, there's going to be moments when it's triggered that you're feeling like nothing's happening in my life. Like I've put all this effort into this project and nothing is coming out of it. This can be devastating for some people. I've counseled people with this aspect. Could be a transiting Saturn opposing natal Jupiter, or Jupiter transiting Jupiter conjunct natal Saturn. Whenever these two guys get together, things sort of stop, because now we've got this tug of war. Okay, so as a professional astrologer, look for this. This is quite significant, and this is the conflict that person will focus on. This is the conflict that will take them for counseling, or take them for a psychic reading, or for a tarot reading, or for an astrology reading. Jupiter, Saturn, of all the planets, because Jupiter moves so fast, and Saturn not quite as fast, but it moves around enough, these two guys are going to cause that where everything slows right down, and the person feels that despite everything they're doing, I've poured so much money into this project, I've gone out and made all these phone calls and connected all these links, I've gone onto social media, and nothing's happening. Well, that's that Jupiter-Saturn thing in most cases. The Mercury retrograde has nothing on a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, opposition, or square. Okay, now what if... So what does it say here? It says that this person is transforming and consolidating their desires of the 11th house, which is to change the world in a better way. What if it happened in the 12th house? It would be quieter, because the 12th house is the deep unconscious. So the outer planet transits are deep. They're deep in the unconscious. The inner planets, and I include the two luminaries, so Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus and Mars, those personal planets, when they transit the chart, you generally can feel them. They're more external, and it's like a pond. Those planets, the personal planets, are like you throw a pebble into the pond and you can see the ripples. How cool is that? The outer planets, so Jupiter to Pluto, they're like an eel swimming on the bottom where it stirs up the mud, and you're not really going to notice it, but things are happening deep inside. Well, the 12th house is the deep unconscious, more so than the 8th. So we've got the 4 psychic houses. The 4th, home and family, so your upbringing, absolutely critical to you as an adult. The 8th is the transformations that you make personally and spiritually to evolve to be a better person, but also to learn certain skills that I'll talk about. Actually, I do talk a lot about the 8th house because it's where I live, in the 8th house. Whereas the 12th it's the last house of our chart. So everything goes there quietly, ready for rebirth into the first. So it's a quieter house, but it's where the deep unconscious is actually, tying off all those loose ends. So when you have, if that transit there, Jupiter Saturn conjunct, was happening in the 12th, then you wouldn't notice much. You would have to wait until they birthed into the first to see what they were working on in the 12th. Remember, that's the stirred mud that you sort of might be able to notice in the pond, but you're not sure what it is. If it happened in the first, wow, that's going to really hit you. It's going to hit you as much as a conjunction with the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, and even Mars. So those personal planets, if this conjunction was happening on any of the personal planets, you would know about it. Boom, it's visible and you feel it. The same with the first house as well. In the second is material stuff. It's your security, feeling safe. So it would affect how you felt about spending money, for instance, consolidating your savings and your debts. Third house is communication, but it's also irritability. The third house are those small things that irritate you, like mosquitoes, so flies, but it's more impatience with other people and irritated by, where the hell are the keys? I told you before, blah, 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 blah. So if it happens in there, then it could be you'd be unbearable for a while. The fourth house would be home and family, but also your sense of security in terms of being connected, a sense of belonging and attaching to your family group. In the fifth is your friendships, but it's also creativity, imagination. It could be a burst of creativity after a period of, remember that push me, pull you? It's not happening. And then as they both move apart, as they have, let me just go months. And look, 1 month later, Saturn's at 4 degrees and Jupiter's at 7. So they're no longer locked in, pulling and pulling. They're moving now. So there's action. That's January. Let's go into February. And we've got Saturn's now at 7 degrees and Jupiter's at 15. So the pattern has broken. So if that's happening in the fifth, all of a sudden there's this dam is bursting of creativity. But the fifth house is also the house of addictions. So it could be like, hey, I haven't spent any money on those lottos or the horses. So you'd have to be careful. The sixth house is the house of Virgo. Virgo is the sign of good, clean habits, good, healthy habits. discipline, reliability, resourcefulness, all of those things. But this is the house of health, because good habits determine your health. Believe it or not, that's how the sixth house relates to your health. The habits that you have formed. If you have bad habits, then you're generally going to have bad health. If it happens in the seventh, then of course all of your relationships are going to reflect that tug of war, and then the release. Eighth house, house of crises, house of transformation. You're going to feel flat. I've been meditating for months, a whole year of meditating, and nothing's happening. And then as soon as they start to move on, a month later, here we go, 2 months later, they're miles apart now, and then things start to happen for you. Ninth house is a house of higher learning, life experience. And this is very important for astrologers, for anyone involved in the occult. We don't learn about spirituality and the hidden secrets by reading about them. We learn by doing them. That's why I'm always nagging about doing your meditations, doing your scrying with the cards, going into those planets, feeling those planets during transit. This is experience. This is real life experience. This is book experience. This is rote learning. This is knowing. This is mastery, the house of mastery. The 10th house is what you're aspiring for. So it'd be very similar to here, where you're locked in and trapped and nothing's happening, and then there's this bursting. So this is the house of achieving. And remember, the 10th house is what we strive for, but we can only reach for the stars when the 4th house is our background and our childhood and our inner work on our inner child, when that is solid. So when you have good foundations, you can achieve anything. So there's just a very quick snapshot of looking at a chart and how it will manifest in terms of transits. And of course I'll talk more about transits later on. And if you have anything in particular that you would like me to look at, flick me an email or put a comment down below. Okay, I'll leave this one and get ready for the High Priestess, which is the next blog. Thank you.